Hey. Good evening, folks. It is Scott Brown here on day 59 of Darren LaCroix's 90-day Facebook Live Challenge. One of the most famous quotes that gets passed around the Toastmasters world is Jim Rohm's famous quote that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And on the surface, it sounds like a pretty reasonable assumption that if you surround yourself with great people, you become great. That the people around you help raise you up or they hold you down. Makes perfect sense. Well, there's 2 pieces to that saying that I don't necessarily agree with. Something that I think is really important to consider, something that we don't really talk about that much. I think it's very important. The first one, I don't think you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I believe you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And the difference is subtle, but it's distinct. If you're the average, it means that there are some folks that are going to be better, some folks that are going to be worse, and you're looking for whatever that average is so that everyone's going to even out. However, if you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, that means that if you are spending time with a 0, then you will become a 0. Because a product is determined as a multiplier. And if one of your multipliers is nothing, that's what you're going to become. And I know it's harsh to say that you become a 0, but it's really easy to put yourself in a situation where you end up surrounding yourself with people that are doing great things, but there's that one. There's that one person in your circle that is dragging you down. And one person can completely derail great work. But we don't necessarily talk about it as a product. We talk about it as an average. So in your circle, who do you need to call out of your circle? Who do you need to replace within your circle of 5? And before you answer that, I wanted to bring up a second point that I think is really important about the Jim Rohn quote. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, there's one person that no matter where you go, there you are. That's you. You are always one of those 5 people. And if you are the one lowering your average, if you are the one that's the 0 in your life, then you are never going to get to where you're supposed to go. You're always going to struggle. You're never going to reach your potential. No matter who you surround yourself with, if you yourself are not worthy of being in their circle, it doesn't matter who else you try to put in your circle, you're never going to raise your average. You're never going to reach your potential. So you have to remember that you can either be your greatest critic or your greatest cheerleader. Because every story that you tell, your mind processes, and it has trouble recognizing the difference between stories that are told to other people and stories that are told to yourself. That it hears those things and it processes them in much the same way. But if the stories that you're telling to yourself are not stories that you would tell to other people, that you're so harsh on yourself that you make yourself feel small, that you're the one who's knocking down your average, that you're the one who's keeping you in the shadows, you're the 0 in your life, you're never going to get anywhere. But you have complete control over who that is that's talking to you, because you have control over the thoughts that you have in your life. And I have certainly been very guilty of it throughout my life. Not only have I surrounded myself with, at times, people that didn't necessarily have my best interest in heart, but I've certainly been very guilty of having a self-talk that kept me small, that kept me in the shadows, that kept me from reaching who I'm supposed to become. And as a leader or as a manager, you're going to be in other people's 5 on such a regular basis that you have to be careful that you're not the one that's lowering their average. You have to be careful that you're not the one that's the product 0 and you're the one creating a situation where they will never become who they're supposed to become. So the next time you hear that great Jim Rohn quote, you are the product of the 5 people that you spend the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Ask yourself, are the 5 people in your life worthy of you being in their circle? Ask yourself if you are the one who's keeping your average down. And ask yourself if it's really an average or if it's a product. Because when you multiply what people do, if you look at contributions as a multiplier, all of a sudden things can become great very quickly. So it's up to you. It's up to you to what story you want to tell yourself. It's up to you to what story you want to tell other people. You have complete control over the dialogue that you share, over the monologue that you tell yourself, and over where you're going to go. So make the choice. Don't be the 0 in your life. Be the multiplier, and have a great life. So until tomorrow, my friends, have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.